Okay, so what are you saying, people, and welcome back to your favorite YouTube channel. So today, guys, like always, another weekly analysis for you. On the screen are the pairs that will be analyzed today, but make sure you do stay to the end of the video as I do have a bonus pair in store. But yeah, guys, we'll go through my trade for the week on Euro USD and then progress to the analysis shortly after. If there is a specific pair you do want to see my analysis to, feel free to skip ahead using the timestamps below. But I did take some shorts on Euro USD this week. It was the same idea I was talking about last week, about just waiting for a pullback, looking for confirmations, and then looking to short. Did get a nice entry signal over there, sitting in some nice profit. Have trailed my stops into profit. 1.08140 is where I got my stop loss at. So if price hits that area, I'll be out of the trade. But I'm just going to look to see how far price can go. I don't have a take profit in mind. I'm just going to be looking to see how far I can take this position. And of course, Euro USD is the first pair we're going to look at. But first, let's take a look at the DXY. I just want to touch on some analysis there because DXY is a good indicator to see what dollar's going to do next week. And of course, we can use that to help our bias with the dollar pairs. Now, DXY, I was pretty bullish coming into this week, and I am still bullish. I'm looking for us to come back into 104.962, pretty much 105 is still the main target for the DXY. We're now creating some really nice bullish structure. So originally had this push here, pull back, push there, pull back, another push. So as long as we don't break structure, I'm expecting pullback continuations back to that high. So there is still room to the upside for the dollar. DXY does look strong at the moment, and I do expect that to continue as long as nothing drastic happens. So taking that information into Euro USD, which was what we were just looking at, I'm looking at more downside for this week, and I will be looking at positions to see if I can get into Euro USD again and scale into that position to really take advantage of this idea. And of course, if DXY is going to get back to 105, we can probably expect Euro USD to get back to this low here at 1.06985. So the plan for Euro USD is, if I just move this out of the way, is now going to be looking at shorts and breaking me test of this area, or if you have a slightly deeper pullback, a breaking me test of this area here, 1.08400 roughly, and 1.08050. So those are the areas I'll be looking for retests. At the moment, we are currently testing that first level, but I want to see a bit more development there before I do short. And then I'll be looking at some opportunities to add to my position. Or if I do get stopped at break even, get back in again essentially. As long as we don't take out this high here for Euro, I'm still retaining that bearish bias. Higher time frame conditions are particularly great for Euro USD. It has been quite choppy, but the lower time frames do look good and taking advantage of this momentum here. So that will be the plan for next week for Euro USD. Okay, so up next we've got dollar yen. So dollar yen, I'm still anticipating more upside. I'm not too particularly keen to trade this pair, to be honest. There are better markets which are in a better location to trade in. Dollar yen, as you can see, we're approaching such a big level of resistance, an area where the market keeps turning around. Big rejection there, second one there. As you can see, we are resting there again. So the plan for the week was to look to buy and anticipate price to go and take out that area, which we just about did by a smaller distance there. A few pips, we took out the high, which is very, very important still. So ever since we did that, I have kind of backed off for dollar yen. I still do anticipate more upside, but I need to see a bigger retracement coming back to some of these areas here, potentially this area here. Nice area where we stalled, and then we saw a lot of momentum come from that area. Pullbacks to those areas are a lot more sensible, much more sensible. Further away from that area where a lot of sellers will be sitting, and potentially we could see Bank of Japan intervene, as we've seen previously. So we could be seeing a big dip in price anyway. So I'm looking at these areas as smart places to pick up some longs. We're still persistent with these higher highs and higher lows across the higher time frames as well. So buying is still for me the best play until we break through major structure, which at this point in time we're very, very far away from doing. So still anticipating more upside. Keep an eye on 149.850, also 149.300 for a deeper retracement, and then possibly some buys back to the highs again. And that will be the plan next week for dollar yen. Okay, so over to dollar CAD. So dollar CAD, I've been saying the same thing for the past few weeks now, waiting for price to kind of break out of this ascending structure so I can look to sell again. Because in the higher time frames, I'm still looking at this as a big impulse to the downside. correction of the impulse to the downside. So that's still the plan. I'm expecting price to come back into the lows. However, as we keep up with this ascending nature, higher highs and higher lows, and just very, very choppy behavior, overall, I don't want to be looking to short this because there's a good chance we're going to see price just push up one more time and take my stop loss. So to protect myself and to wait for more optimal, more conservative opportunity would be if the market can start breaking through some lows here. So we take out that structure and then start using that as resistance to then sell from. That's kind of where I'm looking to get involved with dollar CAD. If we don't see anything of that nature, then I'm kind of just going to be expecting this choppy price action to continue. I'm sure there's trades within this that might meet some of you guys' criteria. Of course, you know, if you've got a trade that fits your criteria, fits your plan, take the trade. But for my analysis and my plan, I'm still waiting for a big break of structure, something like this, and then I'm looking to short the lower highs after. And of course, the chance of price heading lower is a lot greater at this point. And targets, like I've been speaking about, back into the prior low here at 1.32, just below that area. So yeah, this remains the plan for dollar CAD. I'm short bias in this one, but it doesn't make too much sense because I'm bullish on dollar, at least for next week. But of course, bias can be wrong sometimes. I will be wrong sometimes as well. So if structure does break and dollar is very, very weak next week, then I'll probably shift my attention to dollar CAD shorts. So this is what I'll be looking at next week. But yeah, I don't really have this one too high on my watch list. If you do want to see my watch list, make sure you check out the Telegram. I will post that Sunday evening. But this will be the plan for dollar CAD next week. Okay, so over to euro pound. So euro pound, I am expecting more downside for this one. I was looking for the break and retest this week. I mean, not me personally, because there was other pairs that were a lot better than euro pound. But I was talking about if you're looking to trade euro pound, look out for break and retest of this area and then some buys. But I did say big red flag with these wicks here. If the market could throw equally exaggerated wicks to the downside, then it would look a lot better. But we had these big wicks to the upside, so the quality of the opportunity was reduced after these wicks. Doesn't mean it couldn't work out, but we got a deal probability at the end of the day. And with those wicks, it was never really a good opportunity there, unless we saw some really big wicks coming back down again. Then of course we might see the follow through after that, but we didn't. We cracked back below the resistance, turn support. And now going into next week, I'm expecting more downside for price just to simply fill the range back to the lows here at 0.85. If we can see a retest of that same level, the market has rejected it many times. 1, 2, 3, of course, briefly support there. We'll be expecting it to hold again, and of course anticipating price to make its way back to the lows there. There are some levels to keep an eye out for as well. This, I should just use a line, there we go, more sensible. So this area here could be a nice place to bank profits, or maybe your stop loss to break even. Definitely could be an area price does bounce from, but essentially we do have a range, and what I'm looking at is a big fake out to the upside, grabbing liquidity above these highs. So now I do expect some follow through to the downside, and if price is going to retest that area and not break above, I'm expecting price to maintain that back to the lows there, 0.85. So bearish buys for euro pound. Again, personally, I'm not interested in euro pound. Price action is horrendous still, in my opinion. So I'll be focusing on other pairs. But if you're looking to trade it, I would keep an eye on a retest of that level there. So that'll be the plan next week for euro pound. Okay, so over to Aussie dollar. So I do actually like Aussie dollar. It's been quite choppy, but if I can see some more follow through to the downside, I will actually really like the opportunity to short this one next week. Again, favoring dollar strength. So if that's going to happen, I'm looking for sell opportunities on Aussie dollar. But at the moment in time, we still do have these high lows here. One over there. Let me change that to my iconic orange. There we go. So we got one over there, second over there, and potentially a third. We could still push high. We haven't actually broken structure yet. So I do want to see a follow through to the downside for Aussie dollar for two reasons. Why? Because of course that support here, I want to short the retest of that, and two, to actually break that structure as well and show me that, okay, this bullish move here is completely dead, and now we're looking to flow with this bearish structure here, and there is a lot of room to the downside as well for Aussie dollar. We could potentially push all the way to the lows there too. So for me, Aussie dollar looks like a good short opportunity, but it does rely on the fact that we see a strong move lower first, which I do think can happen because the market is kind of try to push bullish from this area, but it's failed numerous times. So I do think eventually we'll crack through and see some nice downside. And then of course looking at pullback, I retest that level. Then again looking for some more shorts and targets. You can play pretty straightforward. There is a lot of swing opportunity here, but you know, these lows here make a lot of sense around 0.644 back down into that prior kind of daily weekly low there. So that's kind of the plan next week for Aussie dollar. Looking at shorts, do you see a strong break of this area? This turned out to be a big fake out, but if you can catch a retest of that area, fantastic, around 0.65150, and then some shorts back into 0.6444 next week. Okay, so over to NZD CAD. So NZD CAD bled to the downside this week. Really nice bearish price action. Did say I was looking for some pullback or some shorts if we're going to hold this level as support, because longer term things still do look bearish for NZD CAD. We're still kind of flowing this corrective bearish manner, so there's a good chance we could come back to the lows here, roughly around 0.795. So my plan is simply looking for the pullbacks to short to the downside, and the plan was for this week to see if we can get a slightly bigger pullback and see if we can come back and retest this level here at 0.82650. Of course that did not happen, and of course we did break through this area here. So now that becomes the next area of interest. I retested this area for some continuations to the downside. There's a lot of bearish momentum present. If we do see a big pullback, then of course I'll still keep an eye out at that level there, but I doubt we'll get a move all the way up there if it is going to happen this week anyway. So it's kind of just to see what happens at this area here. Strong support now, of course, will be strong resistance, waiting for confirmations, and then shorts to the downside. In terms of targets, I kind of will be looking to the left at these areas here, because these are areas where price did find support and quite a lot of momentum too. So I'll keep an eye on that area there. But in terms of my personal trading, I'll be looking to trail stops. So I won't be having targets on my trade anyway, but for your guys' sake, you know, I would keep an eye on some of these areas on the left, roughly around 0.804. Or if we do pull back from here, a push back to the prior low makes a lot of sense as well. Risk reward may look decent too, 1 to 3, 1 to 4 potentially. So that could be a nice target there as well. But NZD CAD bearish bias, high time frames look bearish too. So we got a nice multitude of time frames lining up to the downside. Just waiting for a healthy pullback, and then looking for some confirmations to short as well. And of course, for some reason, if you do get a massive pullback, I'll keep an eye on that area there too. So that's the plan next week for NZD CAD. Pull back into 0.81600, and then some shorts back into the prior low at 0.80700 for next week. Okay, so over to pound NZD. So for me, this one is straightforward. We're getting some really nice, healthy bullish structure now. Push, pullback, push, pullback, another push, and again anticipating another pullback. So again, as long as we don't break through this swing point here, this low there, which of course gave us the high there, then I am looking for buying opportunities for pound NZD. And the first and most obvious area will be this resistance here. We kind of danced at this level for a few days before eventually breaking it pretty impulsively as well. So now I want to see some wicks, some rejection at this area, and of course looking for the next leg to the upside. I've already spoken about pound NZD quite a lot on the higher time frames. We've broken through such a major level of resistance. It does look like we've got that inverse head and shoulder pattern at play as well. So there's a lot of confluence for us to head higher and possible targets back at that swing high there. So now for me, just looking at those pullbacks, finding opportunities and staying with that trend as long as we don't break that low, of course. So next opportunity for pound NZD will be a retest of this area, 2.10901. We've just about come into that area, so we'll see how we shape up on Monday, Tuesday, and hopefully we can get into some nice longs, and of course for me, trading stops. But a logical target would of course be the high there at 2.118 as well, but that'll be up to you to judge. But for pound NZD, looking for longs, hoping to get nice confirmation early next week and ride some momentum back to the highs there. So that'll be a plan next week for pound NZD. Okay, so moving on to CAD Yen. So CAD Yen, I was talking about a test of this area for some buys. We just missed it by a few pips. Price kind of double bottomed just above that level, funny enough, and we're starting to look a little bit bullish now. We did see a pretty strong candle there, but it hasn't really amounted to much. It has taken out this high, so there's a sign that possibly we could be looking at continuations pretty soon next week. But I do want to see a more confident push higher, and then we can actually start using this high to our advantage for some retests and continuations. Because for CAD-Yen, although the market is quite overextended on the higher time frames, we're still very, very bullish on the daily, weekly, monthly chart. We're still heading to the upside here. So with no significant break of structure and the fact that we have breaking highs back again to the upside, the plan is pretty simple. If you're looking to follow momentum, looking to follow trends, we're looking primarily for buying opportunities. If we can see a strong push higher back above this area, pullbacks, retest that level, for me that makes a lot of sense to long and get into a buy position. And of course, trading stocks will make the most sense in these conditions, but we do have a high here, which of course could make for a nice target, or depending wherever we pull back from, back into that high, of course, make a sensible target as well. So CAD-Yen for me, bullish on high time frames, still showing signs that we can see continuations. Let's get a bit more of a convincing break, then look for some pullbacks on 111.766, and then anticipating some new highs for CAD-Yen. Okay, so over to pound USD. So pound USD and the dollar pair, expecting more downside. I was pretty bearish coming into the week for pound, talking about a retest of this area, which we just about saw. It tagged it by a pip or so. I wanted to see a bit more of a deeper test, so I favored Euro USD more to pound, and luckily so, because Euro USD trended better this week. Pound USD did see some downside, but more or less kind of was just a bit flat. But in terms of what I'm expecting for pound, it's pretty much the same analysis from last week. Big move to the downside from the week before, which took out these lows here, giving us these successive lower highs, 1, 2, 3. And again, the plan is we're looking for the fourth one. We do have a really nice area here around 2.16800. It'd be nice if you can tag the 50% as well. And again, expecting more downside, and we've got some targets back to these lows. And of course, if you do see dollar make that move higher, then you would expect pound USD to fall, depending on what the Great British Pound does as well, because I think that was a little bit strong this week, which kind of made the market flat, because dollar was a little bit strong, pound was a little bit strong, cancelled each other out. So hopefully we can see some weakness in the pound there as well. In terms of opportunities and entries, looking for a deeper test of this area here, looking for some confirmations in that area, and then targets back down at this low. Of course, targets at this low makes perfect sense as well. So that'll be up to you to judge in terms of how aggressive you want to be with targets. But the bias, the idea is looking for more downside for pound USD next week. Impulse, correction, impulse. That's the pattern at play. So expect more downside next week for pound USD. Targets at 1.25300. Okay guys, over to pound CAD. So pound CAD, we were favoring some downside this week from a retest of this zone here, which didn't quite happen. We did see the downside, but not the retest of that zone. Really nice level of support. Would have been a nice place to short from, but of course price didn't quite get there. But going forward, I'm still looking at a bit more downside. We have rejected a massive level here for pound CAD. Back at the highs here at 1.72. So I do think there's a bit more downside, at least back into the lows here. This is of course a swing low which gave us these highs, so can't really expect it to go further than that until it does, essentially, because this is still an important piece of structure which could send us back up again. But I'm looking to see if we can come back and test that level. So in terms of getting some good trades going, of course we have missed that level. There's a possibility we may come back and retest it and see some downside. But if this is going to be our lower high, then we're looking at the next best opportunity, which would be a break and retest of this low here, and then again flowing with the market there. We do have this bearish structure, which of course did break this bullish structure we had at play with this move here, breaking through the low. And now since then we've created, well, anticipating this is going to be the next low high. It's not confirmed yet because we haven't taken out the low, but if we do take out the low, then we're looking at the pullback, retest, and continuations back into that daily low at 1.698 roughly. But pound CAD for me is pretty bearish. It does have a good correlation with pound USD, which again I'm expecting downside on that one as well, so probably we'll see them both roll over, or potentially both bullish as well. But from the price action we've seen here, confident bearish structure. If you do see a strong break at that low, I would expect price just to come back into that low there eventually. So yeah, pound CAD shorts to me. Keep an eye on a retest of 1.07790. and expecting a test of 1.697 soon after. Okay, so over to pound yen. So pound yen, again, another yen pair, still looking overly bullish. We're still printing in higher highs and higher lows, so the bias is still very much to the upside. I was talking about this area here last week as a nice break and retest area to long pound yen from. Didn't quite see that. The market kind of danced sideways this week, which is a good thing actually, because it does increase the probability that we will bounce from this level. If the market is going to have that deeper correction, we could be looking at a bit of a bear flag here for the next move to the upside. And if we can get a retest and some confirmations at that level, the risk reward does look very, very attractive on this idea here. Trades from roughly this area back to the swing high, roughly 193,300. Could be looking at some really nice RR there. And of course, higher time frames for pound yen are still very, very bullish to me. I'm looking at the daily chart, still pointing up. Weekly chart as well, still pointing up. Monthly chart, of course, still pointing up there too. So looking for buys in these conditions is most of the time a pretty good idea. So expecting upside for pound yen. We're kind of moving sideways. Wouldn't want to be trading in that kind of area there, but if we can dip lower, we did stall here. Big push to the upside. Haven't retested it yet. Yeah, confirmations in that 190 area, pretty much on the dot. Looks pretty attractive to me, and a big psychological level there too. So keep an eye on a retest of that area for pound yen. Targets back at the swing high, but yeah, expecting more upside next week for pound yen. Okay, so going over to gold. So gold, we just created some new all-time highs again. Things are still looking very, very bullish. I did say coming to the gold, as long as we don't take up this low here, which is of course our swing low for this high, we're still bullish on gold. Structure is still pointing up, and we respect to that area. And of course, price has now made some new highs. So going forward, still expecting more upside, not essentially because I'm targeting a specific level. There is really nothing to target from a technical perspective. It's just that's where the flow is of the market. We're seeing strong candles driving higher, price creating higher highs, seeing corrective moves down. It's a strong sign to me that gold does still have some more upside left to it, until we see some warning signs, break of structures, really impulsive bearish momentum, which we're not still seeing yet. I'm still expecting more upside for gold, and this is a really nice area here where we did stall for a little bit before breaking out with some strong momentum, creating those new highs. So again, if gold will be kind enough to pull back, kind of looking more on the lower time frames for some entries to really maximize the risk reward there. And again, targets with this one, if we're gonna push up here and retrace, then the high there makes for a really good target. Or you can look to trail stops and see how far price goes. But in my opinion, gold right now is still looking very, very attractive, very bullish. So pullbacks, continuations make the most sense. Now this is going to be our swing point here. As long as price stays above that, I'm anticipating more upside. So gold for me is still very bullish. Keep an eye on 22.01 for an area of interest for some longs. And yeah, expecting some more highs again next week for gold. Okay, so moving on to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, I'm still expecting more upside here. Price action is looking very bullish. We've taken up the highs there. I did say retracements to this area do look good. We have bounced from that area and now we're breaking structure to the upside. So next target for Bitcoin, I do expect us to make our way back to the highs there. Everything's still really bullish for Bitcoin. I know we're seeing some signs of the market slowing down and being a bit more corrective, a bit more tidesome, but in terms of the recent move we just had here, big candle breaking higher, breaking past the highs there. I do expect more upside. So looking at this bullish structure, push, pullback, push, expecting a pullback now, retest this area here, and then of course buys it back to the high there. And then we see what's next for Bitcoin, because we could of course topple from the highs there and come straight back down, or we could break through them and do something parabolic. But for now, Bitcoin still very bullish. We just broke structure to the upside this week, so naturally going to be expecting more upside. Really nice area of interest here around 67,400. Did stall there briefly, big push to the upside. Haven't retested that area since, so if we do come back there again, I do expect it to hold. And yeah, see the next high low in this bullish sequence, 1, 2, 3, and then back to the highs 73,500 ish. So yeah, that's the plan for Bitcoin. Still expecting more upside. Let's see if we can get some nice buy opportunities next week. And last but not least, we've got our bonus pair, which for this week is Aussie CAD. Now I'm starting to really like Aussie CAD. It's got a little bit of work to do, similar to Aussie dollar. But if I do expand to the higher time frames, you can see the overall trajectory of this market is south. It's to the downside. We do have a very formidable level of support at this area here, 0.86. But we've always been pretty consistent with these lower highs heading to this area. Again, lower lows, lower highs heading to that same level. I expect that pattern to continue over here as well. We create a high over here. Now the market seems to be creating some lower lows and lower highs. I expect eventually us to head back down to that same low. And that's when we see a big break of structure and a lot of bullish momentum. Something fundamentally has to really change for that to happen. If we're going to continue with the overall narrative in the markets right now, we're likely going to see some more downside. So taking that information into the low time frames for H, what I would like to see for Aussie CAD is just a bit more downside break through this low, because again, we still do have this bullish structure at play, which technically could still see some upside, although as prices developed, it's a little bit unlikely now, and I'm more focused on this bearish structure here, which is this push, this pullback, this next push. If we can take out the lows, that would be fantastic. And then of course, looking at pullbacks to short to the downside, we do have a really nice level of support here. That would be my first area of focus. Potentially, we could push a little bit higher to some areas up there, but I'll keep an eye out on that as the week progresses. If we do break higher than this, then I'll start considering those levels, but this is a really nice level of support. Do want to see a bit more downside first, and then I'll be looking for my pullbacks to retest, and then some shorts. And of course, we could be ending up at that level, but to play it safe, this looks like a sturdy target to have back at 0.8700, let me use an actual line. There we go. So yeah, roughly around 0.873. So yeah, Aussie CAD to me makes the watch list for next week. If we can see a bit more downside early next week, pullbacks through the remainder, and maybe some shorts towards the end, then we can look to carry that to the downside there. Some really clean price action, and it lines up with the higher time frames, which is always a great bonus to have, or an essential to have actually. But Aussie CAD shorts look good, back down to 0.87300. And that, guys, does bring us to the end of the analysis. If you have enjoyed it, please be sure to drop a like on the video. It does really help out. Make sure you do subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and hit the bell so you don't miss out on any streams or uploads in the future. Guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Have a great day, great weekend, and I'll catch you all in the next one.